Okay, it's day two of my sort of self-isolation. I am not showing any symptoms yet, but people can have this virus without showing any symptoms. So I'm being careful, locking myself down, keeping my distance from everybody, and I suggest that you do too. This is a serious virus. Worldwide, there are 191,000 cases now worldwide, and that's just what's identified. So, people aren't getting tested. The World Health Organization yesterday were doing a press conference and the guy was saying test, test, test. And the countries aren't doing it. They haven't got the tests, etc. They've been stretched. They've been caught cold by this. But there's 191,000 confirmed cases, I suggest, worldwide. That's well over a million. It's in the millions, let's face it. That's just the people who've been tested. And 7,500 deaths so far. That's 7,500 people plus that have died from this already, and that's not counting the people that are obviously going to be dying from other illnesses during this period because they're not getting the attention they deserve because everybody's swamped by this coronavirus. 163 countries have had confirmed cases. People are having to take extreme measures. Countries are having to take extreme measures to try and contain the virus and stop the spread. For instance, Iran have released 85,000 visitors today. Iran, who are under crippling sanctions from us and the Americans, which means that they can't even get medical supplies. We have to put pressure on our governments and our ruling elite to stop this shit, to stop, at least press pause on the sanctions. This is fucking incredible. But no, they're obviously using it as a way to get their way and to turn the screw even more, aren't they? While all these people die over in these countries that we're sanctioning. Stay at home if you can. This is the latest advice from the BBC. Yes, propaganda is good. Sometimes, especially during war, which is what this is. It's a war on a virus. This is what the latest UK advice means, everybody. This is pretty good. I saw this earlier. Check it out.
The British government's brought in a bunch of new measures in order to stop the coronavirus.
Without drastic action, cases could double every 5 or 6 days.
Number one, no more non-essential contact with other people. No more visiting friends or family unless it's absolutely necessary. You shouldn't travel either unless it's essential. Number two, no going to work. You should start working from home if possible. Now, not everyone can do that, but you should do if you can. Number three, avoid places like pubs, clubs and theatres. These won't be forced to close down, but the government could do that if necessary. Number four, mass gatherings. Mass gatherings like sporting events and festivals, they're no longer going to be staffed by healthcare workers. They're all needed to help the NHS deal with coronavirus patients. Number five, if you have the symptoms of coronavirus, a new persistent cough or a fever, you'll now have to stay at home with everyone you live with for 14 days. That's 2 weeks. If you live alone, it's only 7 days.
If possible, you should not go out even to buy food or essentials.
Number six, don't use the NHS if you don't have to. Already under a lot of pressure, and the fewer people who need to use it, the better it will be able to cope with this coronavirus workload.
I know that we are today asking a lot of everybody. This is far more now than just washing your hands, though clearly washing your hands remains important.
So that's the latest advice from the BBC, from the government. The government has changed course a little bit today. This is the latest on the BBC website. They're saying that the UK changes course. Change course, or 250,000 people will die in a, quote, catastrophic epidemic of coronavirus. Warnings do not come much darker than that. The message came from researchers modelling how the disease will spread, how the NHS would be overwhelmed and how many would die. The situation has shifted dramatically, and as a result we are now facing the most profound changes in our daily lives in peacetime. This is the worst crisis since World War II. Simple as that. The realisation has happened only in the past few days. However, it is long after other scientists and the WHO had warned of the risks of not going all out to stop the virus. Of course, we've been talking about this for weeks. The crucial piece of evidence came from the scientists at Imperial College London, who first realised the scale of the problem in China and whose advice is heavily influential in government. They assessed 3 strategies. So this is the change of tack from the government. This is what they're suggesting. You've got 3 options. Break chains of transmission, effectively trying to stop the epidemic in its tracks and bring cases down as low as possible, as China has done. That's the first option. Second one is mitigation, except you cannot stop the coronavirus to slow its spread and prevent the massive peak in cases that would overwhelm the NHS, whilst trying to prevent those most risk from severe disease, which appeared to be the UK strategy last week. And the third option is to do nothing and let the virus rip through the population. It was only on Friday that Sir Patrick Vallance, the chief scientific advisor, explained the mitigation plans to the BBC. He said, quote, "Our aim is to try and reduce the peak, broaden the peak, not suppress it completely. Also, because the vast majority of people get a mild illness, to build up some kind of herd immunity, so more people are immune to the disease. This has caused widespread, questioning, because people are like, oh, we don't want to get it. This is the thing with this virus. We're going to get it, okay? It's no use saying, oh, we don't want to get it. We're going to get it. It's just a case of we're going to have to really look after the people who are most vulnerable, the old, etc. Kids don't get it as much, which is why the kids haven't, the schools haven't closed right now. And also, we can't stop this virus. It'll be like trying to stop the wind. So it's all about managing the outbreak of it. Kids, we want them to get it first if possible, because they're least affected by it and build up an immunity to it quicker. That's why the schools are still open. And obviously, of course, nurses who are needed in the NHS badly during this time, a lot of them have children. If we close the schools, then guess what? Chances are the kids who are going to be susceptible for the virus and they become carriers of it, they're going to be taken care by who? Yeah, the grandparents. Because the nurses are at work. You can see the problems that people are facing here and the decisions that need to be made. Let's quickly go on to the NHS website to give you the advice from the NHS. Stay at home if you have coronavirus symptoms, that they are still saying. How long to stay at home? We've already heard from the BBC, 7 days if you have the symptoms, 14 if you're actually with people, 7 if you're on your own. How to avoid catching and spreading coronavirus? Obviously, practice social distancing, wash your hands, etc., etc. I don't need to go through this. We know how it's spread because it's spread in the air. It's not necessarily just touch. And the travel advice there, obviously, get a home from abroad if you can. And then we go on to the treatment. I'll leave that. I'm just going to put that in the chat now for everybody to go and have a look. When you're looking at what to do and taking advice, etc., go to the professionals, go to the NHS. Don't listen to the media on this. Don't listen to Caprice, for Christ's sake. She was trending on Twitter yesterday because she literally had an argument on TV with a health expert, an expert on this, a doctor. She was having an argument with her over, the schools closures, etc. A model arguing with a health professional on national TV. That's what we've come to, a model arguing with a health professional over what is the best thing to do for the health of the country. That's what happens on TV, everybody. That's how low they're going right now. There's obviously a great strain on the economy at the moment. Laura Ashley have announced that they're going into administration as a result of this coronavirus. That's going to cost a shitload of jobs. Dixon's warehouse, Dixon's car, the people who own the Carphone warehouse, have announced they're shutting all of their Carphone warehouses that just deal in the phone business. That's going to be 3,000 jobs that are lost straight away just from that chain. They are estimating that there's going to be around 20,000 deaths in this country, and the government, as a result, to safeguard jobs, so they say, are releasing a £330 billion care package for businesses. 330 billion. Austerity was a con, everybody. They found the magic money tree when they need it. They need it for, emergencies. It's there. They just print it. They press a button. Boop! £330 billion. There you go. Go and use that if you need it. Austerity was a con. They could have invested in social services. They could have invested in transport and public transport. They could have invested in the economy themselves, but they didn't. Why? Because austerity was a con, and the financial system is built on, well, it's kept afloat by ignorance and wishful thinking. I'll come to that later. The government have announced that there's going to be this care package, so that there's going to be a delay in mortgage payments. People won't have to pay their mortgages. To which I say, well, what about the private people who are renting from private landlords? And they've said, oh, they'll be able to get a loan. Great, they'll be able to get a loan that they can get into even more debt and pay back later. You assholes. Give people money. Give people a UBI. This is going to last months. Trump was saying it might last until July and August yesterday in his press conference. People need to survive. Boris Johnson and the government. They need to make sure that they've got money and they're not going to starve. And their children aren't going to starve. This virus is here to kill us, everybody. And the reason this virus is here to kill us is the same reason we have a ridiculous global financial system. The virus is here to kill us because of ignorance, our own ignorance and wishful thinking. We've ignored warnings from experts for decades. And we've just practiced wishful thinking that, oh, don't worry, this sort of shit won't happen to us. Our overuse of antibiotics has caused this sort of thing and will cause this sort of thing being more frequent in the future because we've overused antibiotics. Using antibiotics for, common colds, the flu, etc., of which they have no effect on. They're only there actually for infections, antibiotics, gum infections, tooth infections, etc. And as a result, we've built up an immunity to them, and antibiotics now are not effective enough on people who are as effective as they were. Like I say, ignorance and wishful thinking. And then you've got the rise of ignorance with the anti-vaxxers who say, no, our children shouldn't be vaccinated against all these things. It's a government con. Their children don't get vaccinated, and therefore they put the rest of the community at risk. I suggest if you're an anti-vaxxer, and if there are a load of anti-vaxxers out there that don't want to immunise their children against the diseases that can affect the rest of us, then you know what you all should do? You all should go to your own fucking town where you're not going to infect the rest of us. And you can all be in your own town, and if you don't want to vaccinate your children, there you go, you all live there. And in about 30 years, that town will be non-existent and nobody will want to go there because guess what? Your kids will have all died from measles and mumps and rubella, etc. Ignorance and wishful thinking is causing this. Our experts have been saying we need to safeguard against these viruses. It's a virus that's going to come to get us. And guess what? This virus is here to kill us. It's here to kill the weakest among us. Some would say that we deserve this crap. But as usual, it's the poorest and the weakest among us that are going to actually suffer. Not the rich narcissistic bastards that cause it and can do something about it. We have brought this upon ourselves through ignorance and wishful thinking because we have a capitalist system that rewards people who are absolute assholes and cut corners as much as possible. It rewards them. I'll come to that in a minute as well. Our endless preoccupation with consumerism that drives the capitalist system is going to be our downfall. You can't have endless consumption on a finite planet, a planet with finite resources. You can't. We're going to have to rapidly and radically change the way we live to be able to get through this. We need to all pull together. We need to reach out to our community. I'm going to be doing that tomorrow. I'm going to be sending letters out to everybody in my street. If you need anything, let me know. Or if you've got anything, let me know, and we can perhaps create some sort of hub for our community that can help. There's a lot of old people who live in my road. Suggest you do too. Take advantage of social media. Create as many groups as possible. I'm going to be throwing stuff out in the front garden tomorrow with a big note on it: free to a good home if you need it. You know, I've got a wardrobe, I've got a sofa, etc. Not just food. Be nice to each other. Come together, fight through this. We can really help each other. We can get through this if we do help each other. Remember that. And above all, be kind. Be kind to each other.